Hello guys, how are you doing? This is Kobe here with another not so quick analysis. In today's video, I'm gonna be talking about Navi on the Mirage. They are interesting team and I know that the results are disappointing for the team, it doesn't expect to be eliminated in the IEM Chengdu so early on the tournament. But they won the Mirage against Astralis and the other Mirage that they played last week was on the grand final of the ThunderPick against FURIA. That was they won against Aurora and the Mongols. So they have good results on the map. They just need to fit other things in other maps for me to progress on the major. But moving on. Starting just saying the player's name so you can be use it to my pronunciation. Aleksib, Beat, Imi, Makizi, and then Wonderful, the AWP of the team. Now for the profile. They really like to play this mid aggro, unlike other teams that play the semi-passive mid, the control window. No, they close out the sides of the map, playing by the mid, the short position with Makizi, Amy playing connector, and something that really difference Navi from other teams is that they doesn't play the full window control. Even though they have a good AWP that is wonderful, they prefer to play the window region by the jungle, not by the window itself. It is a weird position, not every team is able to pull this, but Navi pulls and it's very effective, because they move fast on the map and they throw a lot of Molotovs. I even wrote on the points to remember on the profile because they really abuse the Molotovs on the early rounds. They really like to play this Molotov control in the early game. Not just on the hallway, but also behind box, ramp, every possible way to throw Molotov they will find. So that is very interesting to see how Navi plays. Starting with the AWP connector, as I said, they make display of the start window, then move out of the window. Most of the times that is the same stage. In this position right here, we see that Im is the player doing this. Oh, sorry about that. And how they force this connector with the repeat, that is the interesting aspect because when the teams usually do this, they want to control the short, but they are already have Makizi controlling short. And the second option is control the underpass, so you move your AWP to the connector and push. But this also works when they want to control the A position, because another aspect of Navi is this have control on the A side. We have already one player in the jungle, that is Imi. We have Wonderful with the WP that easily can rotate short stairs and then control ramp. And that's why we see Beat below the shadow position. Because it doesn't need to control the policy from the sandwich or play passive on the A side or near ticket. No, you can play on the shadow. That is a good position. I really like. For the B side, doesn't need to say much more. Like CB plays basically the anchor position, passive way, and Makiz explores the rotations. So when there is a WP on the connector, Makiz you go for some picks, you go for more active moves. Now for the AWPA. In AWPA, we see that Wonderful is playing the ticket position, a very standard. And once again, no one on the window. Fully ignore the position. Because he controls the ramp, once again, this opens the position for Beat to play below Shadow. So he's waiting for the cheese to push on the ramp, on the palace, and then on the ramp. And Imi plays this natural progression of the connector. Something that I must highlight, and you keep talking about this while we talk about the CT side, is that Imi pushes connector. Imi pushes the mid lane. That's how Navi plays Mirage on the CT side. Control mid and then expand the aggression. That's why we see here. He's gonna push out. We see the Molotov behind box because Imi really wants to take out this duo right here because the mostly common default for the T side on the Mirage is to do 2 to 3 players on the mid side. One player throw utility on the catwalk, a smoke here, and then pass choice behind box. But since box already have a Molotov, he's forced to either fade with another smoke or to move behind chair. And then we have 2 players right here. That's why Im is controlling this part of the map, going for this aggression, because A is already full locked. A DWP on the ticket stops the progression on the ramp, and then Beat in the shadow stops the progression from the palace. So either going for mid or B is the cheese options. Now for the AWPB, and we see that when teams plays the AWPB, they have two options: solo AWP as the anchor, or the AWO, or sorry, solo the AWP like a traditional anchor on the B side, or makes the B player that is the anchor to rotate, and Navi plays this secondary option. You know, Aleksib goes for the window and then he starts to move. He can either go behind market and then make it two players, or he can even rotate to the A side, but once again, not on the window. Only on the early stages. Once again, window is fully ignored. And they exploit this aggression of the B like the same methodology of the A side, at the ticket position. You have one player blocking one bomb site alone, and then they control the two other stages. Marquise short, Imi going for the aggression on the mid position. Once again, Molotov, and now a flash, because on this part of the map, on this stage of the round, he wants to go for the picks more aggressively. As he doesn't have the window player, the window player is Aleksib playing near jungle, near for the connection they start on the A side, so he goes alone. Now for the aggro mid, there is a, well, how can I say this? Not weird position, but unconventional approach of the map, because there is no anchor on the B side. Aleksib is playing on the window for why? Well, that's up to Navi mind. That's up to the Blade on this position, because it's weird. When I was watching the demos for them, I was, oh wait, but there's no one on the B side. Is the true? I was trying to find the reasons why, and my explanation from why they give up the B side, because remember, there's only Marquise. Marquise won't be playing back. He can do this. He played a few rounds, but not on the setup without Aleksib. Usually with Aleksib on the market, and then he goes back to make the shoot on the apartments, on these stages. But here, giving up the window control, giving up the B control, Aleksib goes for the window. A region that they usually doesn't play. It doesn't make sense, no. But they want to force. And somehow, some way, I found it good. I had struggles to understand the regions on why they're doing this, but it's good. Bear with me, stay with me, please. I'm going to explain why this position is so good and why I really like it, even though it's rich. First, it doesn't need to control the B side. The B side is usually attacked on quick rushes. So if with 10, 15 seconds of the map, maybe 30 seconds, it doesn't see an activity, your B player is just there, waiting, like a goalkeeper, waiting for something to happen on this part of the map. But no, Aleksib goes for the quick play. So the quick play in window, Imi all the way of the aggression, no shame, no fear with the with the flash behind chair, with the Molotov behind box, fully controlling this space of the map. Really want to push the aggression, really want to push the limits. So mid already, you cross the box, because if anything happens on the mid, they're gonna be A or B. So how they check the A side? Wonderful with the WP on the stairs, controlling ramp, beat controlling palace on the box, waiting for the TTs to throw some utility on the A side to know what to want to do. If they start with the dual smoke on the A side, I'm maybe with a Molotov behind box, beat already set to move, to engage. So they have control of mid and A. If in this time there is no aggression, there is any reason to happen on the map, no introduce, no responsible utility from the T side, then Aleksib rotates. And that's the magic of the play, He's waiting for something to happen, but he's waiting on a strong spot, on a active spot, giving cover to Imi, giving cover to Marquise in case he wants to engage you in the short aggression, avoiding someone going from the other pass position, and also the mind game, because if in the, let's think that they are playing as the CT on the first half, if in 10 rounds they doesn't play anyone on the window, it won't be on the 11th and not neither the 12th round, So they play this position when they want to fuck off with this side, to break the game. So that's magical. Really like it, this approach, that is diabolical, because you doesn't expect to be Aleksib on the window without the WP on the B side, without wonderful right here on the van. Now let's go for the counterplay. How do I think that you should be playing as the T side against Navi approach on the CT? Well, first option, quick rush B, that is the green arrow right here. Only Aleksib play, as we saw in the previous round, they have the option of playing Aleksib on this crazy window position, but most of the time it's either Aleksib alone, Makizi short or a really near market, and then wonderful if the AWP sets up. If you play fast, you dislodge the AWP or the anchor player in the van with one Molotov. So one Molotov right here, one flash to make sure there is anyone else, and then you have the B side. It is risky. It is risky because this short space, this how way you usually line up the players. So it is easy to take out this position as the solo anchor. That is why it plays with only one player in this position because it is easier to hold. But if you can overcome a quick rush in an expected position, the bomb site is yours. Now let's go for the secondary position. That is the green and the light blue arrows. Green, no, sorry, yellow. This is yellow. A slow control, a slow push, play with the 2 players, 2 players policy, 2 players ramp. Because if you go for the single way push, and that is the single view that wrote in the document, like some teams do this, one policy for ramp, there is too much risk for me. I prefer 2 as the way Navi plays, because Navi, remember, they have the jungle player as they doesn't play window, so they have one player here instead of the default window. So expecting the one player jungle, one player on the stairs that is either IEM rotating or even wonderful, and then we have Beat. Beat plays inside the A side and below shadow. So you must to play slow to have your utilities. And then you throw the Molotovs, the smoke. Like I said, I really like this smoke wall to block out this part of the map. So you remove the jungle player from the position. You make it harder for it to connect on the connector position. That is usually aiming this position. So you play in the split 2. Make sure to overcome in a V, not go for single randomly duos. And then to close out the game on the overall approach, one lurker mid. No need to make 2 lurkers. One lurker against Navi for me is enough. Because remember, Imi likes to rush on this position. Makizi is on the short position. So you're gonna be already in disadvantage. Why to force 2 players, maybe 3 players? No, one lurker, Lonnie. Make this lurker move, more a slower player. Maybe some players that really trust twins the duos, A player that you can play solo. An example of this kind of the player for me, it would be at Furious, Yakindar. At Aurora, it would be Shantares. At Navi itself, it would be Imi, it would be Makizi. Even though Makizi, as the T side, has been struggling a lot with these duos, but I trust in him, I trust his players. And that's it about the CT side. Just a quick break, drink some water. In my case, I'm gonna cough. Sorry about that. I was briefing. And I just reached 350 subscribers, almost 400. Remember to subscribe, support the channel, share with your friends. That's it. Let's move on to the T side. Once again, if you are just clicking on the T side and want to know how I pronunciate the player's name, Aleksib, Beat, Imi, Makizi, then wonderful. Navi has a clear play on the T side, it's very clear on what they want to do and how they want to do. First, the control mid. They really like this control mid. 2-3 players, very often there is a great duo of Aleksib and then wonderful playing this part of the map. Aleksib pass behind the box. Wonderful stays with the WP here. They can swap, yes, they can swap, but the most frequent position is Aleksib behind box. Wonderful on the side of the map. 2 players on the underpass, usually they like to play this because they split the A and B side, There is a clear split on how they want to approach the maps on their attacks. That's why I'm gonna show a position that is called split A and another position that is called split B, because this is how they play the map. And to close out the profile, they play with side lurkers. And what I mean by side lurker, there is always one lurker on each side. A few exception to call it is one player, but Imi doesn't play on this part of the map. He plays mid, but they're really transition on this part of the map, and that's gonna show to you. Sorry about that. There's two Makises. I know. The reason that is because in the default, the Makise is either falling Imi under the plus playing as a trade player, not as the main entry for the team, or playing on the ramp position. So either here or here. There is his common place on the map. As I said on the profile, they really like to play Aleksib behind box, wonderful, giving up the cover. What they want to do when they play the default is to play more slow approach, control the mid, that is their approach for the map. So they take out the mid, they start to transition on Imi on the underpass. So Imi is moving slowly behind the underpass to close the mid. And when they have the control of the mid, they can either go for the A side or B. On B side attacks, Makis, instead of falling underpass, he will lurk on the palace position, or no, the apartment's position, so he stays above. When they want to go for the A side, Makis is usually on the A side already on the ramp position, with it playing a more passive palace, it isn't the player that goes for these crazy picks on the palace position right here, on this part of the map. You just play behind. I understand why he does this. That's the team prefers to go for the Makis as the main entry, as for Emi as the main entry, and balancing out with Aleksib and Wonderful when they entry on the bomb sides, with the mid control. But I do think that Navi still would beneficiate more with a more active beat, if he was more active on the map. I don't know if this is a team call or his call. If his call, okay, I'm fine with that. The players know what their limits are. But if this is a team call, well, should change Blade. Now for the split A. Two Aleksibs. The reason why I have two Aleksib, it is because this is a two-stage play. First stage of the play, Aleksib goes mid, trying to make a duo, throw the utility, go for these aggressions, move out of the map, try to do something. If nothing happens, he quickly rotates, and I forgot to draw an arrow. There should be an arrow right here. Sorry about that, guys. He rotates mid, and then he can throw another utility from the T spawn and move back. So he moves back. And they go for the thing that I don't like about the teams on the Mirage. When they split the attack, they make it 4 players on the ramp and 1 player palace. I do think that is wrong. I do think that it would be more optimized to have 2 players on the palace. But that is my view on the map, just something not critical about the Navi. They are not the only team doing this, all teams do this. It is rare to see 2 players on the palace. But this is something that I think, rare to see this sentence. But this is what I think it is best for the map, But moving back to the play. I call it split A because there is the mid control, there is the underpass control that transitions to the connector. That's why we see this smoke right here inside the connector. And then they gauge. 3 players because remember, Aleksib is behind the players in the box. So he has Makis as the entry, wonderful, taking out control, maybe a secondary smoke here. I do like when they do this smoke on this part of the map. And then beat ways to enter. That is something very common about Navi. Navi doesn't like to force beat in these early aggression positions. He's trade, he's closer player, Now for the split B. The split B, similar approach, they have the control. And as I said, this is one of the few roles that we doesn't see him playing this underpass region. And the reason why he doesn't play underpass, it is because he's on the mid. The 2 main entry players for the Navi on the T side, it is the Makisi plus him, and then we have the combined of Wonderful and then Aleksib that play as the duo on the mid on the default, as I showed, with Aleksib here and then Wonderful here. They play as a dual mid. And since they're going to split to the B side, there is a more harder bomb side to engage, because as I said on the counterplay, The one player here can align the shots and then kill two, three players, very easily with the M4, especially if it is the silenced one, the MA1. I always forget with M4 and MA1, but it's the silenced version, The mag is smaller, but you can shoot faster. And then I have this flash that I really do like because in case the short player decides to move, as this is a slower approach for the split B, since the action is above the catwalk and then rotation on this part of the map, the short player can move back. So they throw the flash to blind out his movement. So they block this movement. And then we have two players engaging. Wonderful can play and sometimes can not be playing with the WP. If he plays with the WP, he is far behind the team. If has the AK or maybe some Tech 9, is a lower economy weapon, he plays more closer for the team, for the trade, because McKees may drop the AK, Beats may drop AK in case they die, and then he pick it up as a free upgrade. So remember, he's closer when he has low money or on a rifle. He's distant, more far away if he has a WP. Now for the mid to A position. In the mid to A, the approach is the same. We have three players, and then the idea to engage on the A side is to do this dual lurker setup on the A side, and then we see Beat going for more aggressive play on the palace because he wants to know the information. He doesn't, unlike the other plays, he isn't waiting for the team to know, oh, they're on the B side, they're on the B side. No, he wants the information. He wants to give the call for the team. The same goes for the McKees. They're always pushing the ramp. And then our Trakor of IEM Aleksib, wonderful, engages removing the window player, making he plays on the jungle position, and then engage towards the connector. We see that Navi doesn't play a lot of utilities, he plays a more end-round utility. When they enter bomb side, they make the utilities rain. No need to waste your utilities like other teams does on the early game, because what you see in the early game is that teams waste too much utility. Navi, no. Navi really likes to save the utilities, really likes to play after the plant, so when the CTs want to retake, they still have a more used utility to throw. They have flashes, they have Molotovs. That is very cool. It is a risk approach, but it's very cool either way. Now let's move on to the counterplay. And that's how I think you should be playing a CT against Navi. First thing, control the mid. So have your active mid players, Have your window player, have your shot player, your connector player. Be ready to engage on the mid because there's always someone on the mid. Either by the classic duo of Aleksib and then Wonderful, or either by when they split with three players, Emi and then Aleksib, or Emi Aleksib and then Wonderful. What I also think you should be playing, it is the default anchors. No need to try to innovate with crazy stuff against Navi. No. Play your Van anchor. Play your A side anchor. Make the play, Slow down the game. Start with your Molotov on the ramp, to not give enough space for the Makizi to run over you. So play slow, remember, stays back. And now the window player. Because this part of the map for Navi itself is non-existent. They play slow window, start on the 10-15 seconds on the map, they have the window player, and then move to the jungle. That is how Navi plays the CT. Against Navi, you should use your window player to rotate, but stay more time, because Imi plays the underpass a lot. It is his default play after all. So, a Molotov on the edge of the underpass, it is good to avoid Mitch moving too fast. A smoke in the window, when they throw, you need to move back. So, where are you going to move back? Rotate. Besides, play market position right here on the first stop, or a second stop on inside the bomb side, or even go to the A side. You doesn't need to go the jungle and then connect, making this part of the map, because you already have one connector, since you are playing an active mid against Navi. So maybe have your player on the window to go on the A side and free up so your A anchor can play below the shadow, between the sandwich, or even the star position. Make your window player more active with the default anchors. Solid anchors. No need to move the anchors. No need to make crazy stuff against Navi. Navi doesn't play very fast. They like to control mid, so you go fire against fire. Make your mid more active. You force them to feel uncomfortable during this control mid. On the A side, you start with the utility and then wait them to back. And that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the content. Hope you like how I'm doing because I have a few time and I'm not having enough time to record all the videos. You know, the FURIA video, it was more than a week ago. And the video before the FURIA one was also 1 week. I really want to make more videos, but time is very hard for me currently. And that's it. Bye bye. See you soon, guys.